last time during it. This lap could potentially count towards their qualifying should something happen to our Q session. Knowing that, they have a rule set in place that coaches are not allowed in the car for this session. So this time we are sure who exactly is going to be in these machines. Those who were around may have seen Laura Eli's number 209 parked on the outside of the track. Good news is that is fixed, and it is back out running immediately. In fact, she was first in line to head onto the circuit. Welcome, of course, to the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama. This is the fifth race weekend that we're holding for this series. We'll have two races this weekend. First one's going to be happening tomorrow, and then on Sunday we'll wrap it up before we get to the main event with IndyCar, of course. But we'll try and give you a good show as the drivers are already headed out on track. 40 minutes for this practice session. Again, for those that weren't around, we have two classes of cars, but we have four separate classes. The two types of cars that you're going to see are the 992 Cup GT3 cars, and then, of course, we have the Porsche Cayman Club Sport. Now, within those two classes of cars, we have driver classifications, if you will. The 992s see the Pro-Am class. Those are for drivers that are under 50 years old. And they have the Masters class, which is for drivers who will turn 50 before the end of the season. Then down in the Caymans, same deal, the Pro-Am and the Masters. However, with the Caymans, it is essentially two cars in the Pro-Am, so we mostly just kind of call those as one whole Cayman class racing together. 6 of them total going to be in that one. Just seeing the first drivers now starting their first flying laps. Very different conditions to what we saw visually, at least. It is still quite cool, and as we heard not long ago, and as you can tell for those here at the circuit, it's a lot more sunny, so that's going to heat up the pavement. I did get to talk to some of the drivers. Heard that it took about 2 laps, actually, to get the tires up to temperature, up to full working temperature, get a hot lap in this morning session. Suspect it'll be a little bit quicker this time, but still might take a lap or two to really get them to the desired temperatures, these drivers. So we'll watch out for that. Hopefully they won't be too squirrely as well and slippery on those colder tires out here. Need to pay attention, especially since we probably will see them try to set the best lap possible to ensure that they won't get caught out when it comes to the qualifying session if something happens out there. Because it's not just whether or not weather interrupts it. We could have a session prior to that for one of the mini-series that we have this weekend. If there is an accident, a red flag that keeps the track from being able to be safe to run, then we could miss a qualifying session because of that. Or it could be a situation where a driver has a wreck that stops the session before drivers actually get that full lap time in. So there's all kinds of things and all kinds of reasons that we've seen over the years here in Porsche Sprint Challenge that could cause it to happen, hence why we have the rule in place and why the drivers probably don't want to leave it to chance out here. Now, as the first times come across the board, Blake McDonald is going to be your quickest right now provisionally, 26.4. I spoke to a few of Blake's teammates, and they seemed pretty confident that they could take the fight to James Lee, who was our quickest during practice 1. That was not from a coach for James Lee. He was very, very fast out there and took it by about 0.04 of a second, so it was tight between himself and McDonald. But as we saw at Circuit of the Americas, James is ready to make that step up, that is for sure. When I spoke to him, he said he's feeling a lot more comfortable in the car here at this stage of the season. This is his second season in the Cup cars, though. So he has been around here before. He knows his way through this beautiful facility. Looks like Steve Miller right now is our quickest in the 217s, though. Or, excuse me, in the Masters class, though. In the 217 car, I should say. And as soon as I bring that up, Reinhold Kron says, nope, I'm quickest in the 233 machine with a 27.6 now on the board. Steve Miller going to take him right back, though. they're both 2 seconds off of Blake McDonald's time. Blake is extremely quick right out of the gate. So interesting stuff there at the front of the field. Meanwhile, down in the Caymans, Michael Galke right now holds the quickest lap at a 1:33.698. Kinsey right behind him. And again, commentator's curse seems to be very quick on the trigger today, because Eli Kogan has now jumped both of them, taking that number 50 up to the top spot. Still waiting for a few cars to set times. Some of them had to be held due to small infractions in the first practice session. Just procedural stuff, so nothing major. But 5-minute hold for at least 5 cars in this session. And we're, I think, hearing the last of them get out there now. James Lee now getting much closer to Blake McDonald, taking second place out there in a 1:26.001. About a half a second off of the 2:08 machine. Jim Walsh fastest to the Masters, but third overall in the 2:69. He's got Laura Eli close behind him. Thankfully, we're getting pictures this time. Practice one, unfortunately, not quite set up for that, but we can see a little bit more around the track as we watch a few of our Caymans come down through Rainy Curve. Ooh, that was a bit of a close moment out of Rainy Curve, actually, for one of our Caymans coming off of that swift downhill left-hander. Didn't quite make out who that was. I think that may have been Rod Wagner, actually. But thankfully, he'll get away with it. Car just got a little upset off of the curbs here. Relatively flat curbs, of course, but the apexes can be a little bit treacherous. Those bright yellow sausage curbs to the inside need to be given some respect. Of course, the big talking point, though, when speaking with the drivers, is how happy they are with the repave here. So much more grip, they're saying. And drivers love to go faster, so they're excited about that. Eli going to jump Jim Walsh, so will Kevin Woods. Kevin didn't get much time in practice one. Said they had some steering issues they were trying to sort out, so he really didn't get much representative down on the board. But the 294 is now back up into second on the timesheets here in these first 10 minutes of practice number 2. Woods is our points leader, actually. Coming in on 4 wins already this season. And in fact, the only time he was off the podium was at Spring Mountain in race 1. Otherwise, he's finished no lower than second. Impressive stuff there from Kevin Woods. He has probably higher expectations from himself. He considers this his home track. Says he lives almost exactly between here and Sonoma, but calls this place home when it comes to racing. Woods still sitting in that second spot. Walsh has been jumped down to third in the Masters, with Casey Dennis now going quickest out of everybody. So the RWE team, once again, showing up in force. Casey with a 1:25.4. He's about a tenth quicker than Blake McDonald that time by. See if James Lee can match that one. He was the fastest in that first practice session. I bet he'd like to have that again. Certainly a gorgeous day now that the morning fog has cleared out of here. See Josh Conley also sitting in fourth in the Pro-Am right now. A nice job from that 299. Currently sitting just under 2 seconds down from Casey Dennis. Looks like down in the Caymans it is Galke who still leads the Masters, but overall in Caymans it is Eli Kogan who is quickest. In fact, he has, if I'm seeing this correctly, well, he had about 1.3 seconds. He just set another personal best, and he's farther ahead now, but it looks like he's actually gone quicker than Jay Barron in the 992s. That's an impressive feat. Those Cayman cars are quick, but it's hard to make them faster than the 992s. So Jay is going to want to try and correct that. Krigler, newcomer in the 284, actually goes a little bit faster than Eli Kogan just now. This is probably some of the most action that the crews will hope they will see down here on pit lane. This series sees races at 35 minutes plus 1 lap for both races. So there are no scheduled pit stops for the cars. But you will see them out there just checking things over, maybe making a few little tweaks here during these practice sessions to get them all ready to go. How about Kevin Woods? Looks like old age and treachery once again counts for something, as the 294 is not only our Masters fastest driver right now, he's the fastest overall. So great stuff from the 294. Getting some nice views from our cameras through turn 6 as well onto the Ray Hall straight. That is one that I'm very eager to see what happens when we get to qualifying and into the races. That is definitely one of the scarier turns on this track. It's going to be high commitment through there. But then, of course, there is the infamous corkscrews. We watched them on the screens come down through that portion. Haven't seen much of Laura Eli improving lately. In fact, she's going to take it into the pits, it looks like, this time by. A little bit of an off as well for somebody coming down through turn 10. Trying to figure out who we saw there just flashing by. That's the 221, actually, who had that scary moment. Seen a lot of drivers do that over the years. Just going a little bit far through that turn 10. So much banking, so much camber that they're trying to carry the speed. Well, as we come around through the Andretti hairpin now for a few of our quicker drivers. Casey Dennis still our fastest in that 274 for the Pro-Ams, but sitting second, about half a tenth down from Kevin Woods, showing that personal experience here at this track. Like I said, considered it his home circuit. In fact, man, we have to go down to Kyle Washington in 7th overall to get to the next Masters car. Great lap from Kyle. Haven't seen him really showing all that much in practice 1, and nor up till now today. Or currently, I should say. They're both practices today. But he's got himself up in a second in class. Just needs a lot to get up to Kevin. It is, well, actually not that much, I should say. About 0.5 of a second, it appears, that he has to make up. Boy, it is close up at the front of the field then, judging by those times. In fact, going from 5th place, 6th place to 7th place, we have less than 1/10 of a second from Sofronis, Mulcahy to Washington in overall times. Kind of expect that at a track like this with much shorter lap times around here. It's harder to make that difference, but this is a technical circuit. So as Kevin Woods has shown, sometimes you can steal a march, but not over Blake McDonald. He is down to a 1:25.1 now. About 1/4 a second faster than Kevin Woods in that 2:08. So back to a Pro-Am driver leading up at the top. Casey Dennis now down to 3rd because of that. James Lee into 4th. Great job from Sofronis now. I mentioned him not long ago in the 214. He's in the top 5 overall. 4th in class as well for Pro-Am. Well, as the drivers continue to tick off laps here, see Josh Conley just outside of the top 10. Jim Walsh, who I did confirm was also joined by his coach late in the session. So when he jumped up to quickest in the Pro-Ams, or in the Masters. That's what brought him up. Sounds like we got a replay here. One of the cars had a bit of a spin. This is in turn 6, it appears. Just going a little bit wide. Thankfully, didn't go much farther out into the gravel and get stuck. Was able to bring it back. Just trying to make out who exactly we saw there. Could have actually been Blake McDonald. It appeared to be one of our darker colored cars. He's got that unmistakable black and yellow. Be uncharacteristic if that was Blake. Looks like that car is heading into pit lane, and no, that is not Blake McDonald, actually. That might be Jay Barron in the 233 that just came in to get that car checked out. Still haven't seen Sam Parnagian get out on track, which is interesting. Zweiback also is still sitting in there, and Sean Kelishati has been in a no-show in both sessions. Hope that number 7 has everything okay, and we can see him compete this weekend. Hate to see him not even get the chance. Conley also just exited pit lane in the 299. He sits still 11th overall. Walsh's latest lap at a 1:26.9 is going to move him into 9th overall, but he sits in 4th in the Masters class right now. In fact, thankfully, I've been handed the practice times of the first session from our drivers. Again, I'll have to go by on what I've been told on who had their coach in the car. None of them have the coach in the car this time if you missed us a little bit ago. So this is all the drivers who are going to be competing that are in the car right now. Haven't talked about those Caymans in a bit, and it hasn't changed all that much as Eli Kogan still leads Michael Gawke. Kinsey is 3rd in those Porsche Caymans currently. It was actually Greg Herback who was scored in 2nd in that first practice session. I did confirm that his coach was in there. And quite a coach that he's got as RS1 team driver is out there helping him. Very, very fast team. Often seen championships and wins in whatever series they compete in, including this one. Eric Fogueras, the one helping coach for him. Casey Dennis now has moved himself into 2nd, past Kevin Woods. An initial burst of speed for the 294. Not completely backed up yet. He's now about a half a second off of Blake McDonald. In fact, Blake just went by that final corner, getting ready to complete a lap now. Actually, I take that back. That was Patrick Mulcahy that just went by. So Patrick, last lap, putting down a 28.6, but his best is a 25.9. Just about halfway through this 40-minute practice session. After this, it is on to qualifying for these drivers. Seeing shots of James Lee down through the corkscrew. He's been bumped down to 3rd in the Pro-Ams, but he's 4th overall right now. It's always such an interesting dynamic watching those two classes, the Pro-Ams and the Masters, intermingle. Can sometimes play an effect on their battles within their classes. If you do have to overtake one of the other classes and they're not willing to give way, we've seen it affect whether or not they've got the time to chase down whoever they're trying to catch. So other than Kelishati being out, the good news is we do have all the rest of our Caymans out on track. That'll be Eli Kogan, Michael Gawke, Richard Kinsey, Rod Wagner, Greg Herback. And then the aforementioned number 7 is the one you're missing. If you want to know the physical difference between the cars, an easy way to try and tell them apart, the 992 Cup cars will have a taller rear wing. So if you say a much lower rear wing, you can assume that that is one of the Caymans. They're also just a bit smaller as well. Not seen many drivers able to improve lately. I think most of them trying to get those quick laps out early. Probably trying to get the best out of the tires when they're still fresh. Have had a couple of them come down pit lane and are now returned to the track, including Casey Dennis, who sits second on the timing charts. Looks like Blake McDonald now taking a moment to stop in with his crew. Blake running the bright highlighter yellow, splashed over black in the number 208. Should be what looks like a just standard stop in to get things looked over. Nobody looked like they were in a rush trying to fix anything over there. In fact, he's already out and going. Blake at about just shy of 4/10 quicker than Casey Dennis right now. Still looking very, very good for holding that fastest time here in practice 2. Wonder if we'll see James Lee back up to the front, if he's still got something in his pocket. If he can back up that quickest lap that he had in practice 1. What's interesting is James' fastest lap was a 24.654 on that lap, whereas Blake McDonald, 24.933 for his quickest lap. As the track heats up, I wonder if that is slowing the cars down just a hair. Usually you'd expect as everything rubbers in and the drivers get accustomed this second session, you'd think they'd start to pick it up. There is Lee now on our screens, coming out of pit lane. Glad to see Jim Walsh able to bring it into second in class. Kevin Wood still ahead of him. He and Kevin have had some nice battles all season long. But this one's going to be important to the 294 because Woods will not be wanting to allow Jim to beat him on home territory. After this race here at Laguna Seca, after this weekend rather, we'll be going to Road America and Sonoma. Really some fantastic circuits that they put on this schedule. What'll be interesting with those is they will share those weekends with the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America series, which is a slightly larger series, more drivers involved in that one. So there'll be busy weekends. Just saw Laura Eli also exit pit lane. She currently runs 4th in the Masters in her 209, 9th overall. I think she's been a bit caught out by some of the speed we've seen from the other drivers. Like I said, she started things off with a victory, looked incredibly fast, and maybe not as quick here in practice. Granted, we have to remember, we've also seen her usually race a little bit better than her qualifying. So while this is practice, her outright speed doesn't seem to be there, but race pace is spot on. And honestly, her door-to-door skills are second to none. Puts on some fantastic moves. She certainly knows how to scythe through the field when it requires it. Just seen Kyle Washington return to the track. If you see any of those super fuel cans sitting around, that would be his doing. as you can tell by the sponsor on his car. It's his energy drink company that he runs. Definitely have needed a few on race weekends, so a big thanks to Kyle for letting the team have a few of those here and there. "15 minutes to go." 10 minutes to go, actually, it looks like. So 15 minutes to go. I was right the first time. No, 25 minutes to go. Never mind. Our producer is 20. I'm being told 20 minutes to go. But it is not correct. I'll get you guys the correct time as soon as I can. I'm getting all kinds of information, and I don't think any of it is correct, as always. But thankfully, we've been staying green since the first practice. We had one car stop out on track. Laura Eli found out it was a problem with the rotary. They've obviously gotten it fixed and is back out, knocking on wood, or at least the fake wood that we have in front of me, that it stays green for the remainder of this session. As I was saying earlier, the championship well underway, with us now being into the second half of it at the start of this weekend's event. Blake McDonald is our points leader over in the Pro-Ams. He's being chased by James Lee, but Blake's been so dominant and so consistent that James in second is 72 points behind. For reference, it is 60 points for a win. So he is more than a win's worth ahead, and they do have drop weeks. So it's definitely a bit of a space apart there. Now that's in the Pro-Am. Over in the Masters, as I mentioned, is Kevin Woods leading. Laura Eli is actually the one chasing. It's a little bit closer in that one, 36 points apart for them coming into this weekend. Jim Walsh third in the points there for the 992 Masters. Looks like we're getting our timing and scoring back. And it is now 12 minutes to go. My 15-minute call was probably the closest one that we had out there. I should have trusted my gut instinct. See James Safronis with a recent quick lap, putting him up to fifth, 125.7. Excellent job for that 214 GMG car. Also see Joel Cortez managing to get himself into the top 10 in that 203. Still seeing about 3/10 between Blake McDonald and Casey Dennis. Eli Kogan, still our leader down in the Caymans, driving the number 50. He's in that bright red Cayman, if you're looking for him. Galkey behind him in second, and the orange and white. Orange and gray, really, I should say. Still haven't seen James Lee repeat the heroics that we saw in practice one. He's sitting in fourth still, about a half second off of Blake McDonald's. Confidence from the team seems to be backed up for the BR Racing team. At least for now. 10 minutes left to go. That could still change. Actually getting pictures of Galkey going by up the hill. And we got a car with their flashes on going slow out of turn 6. Just trying to make out who that was. May have been Cortez. See if we can see them come down through the corkscrew here. Figure out who is having issues. Thankfully, it doesn't look like there's much traffic around, so they're able to calmly go by. And the car does seem to be under power, so hopefully won't come to a halt on the track. I think that is the 269. So unfortunately, they're going to head into pit lane. Jim Walsh going to join him. Excuse me, so Jim Walsh is the 269, so that is not him. We'll try and get that information a little bit later. Ooh, big cloud of dust being kicked up at some point on the track. It looked like turn 4 potentially. We were watching there from turn 10 on our cameras. So pushing it a little bit harder now, I'd say, some of these drivers. We already saw one spin over at turn 6 in this session. Thankfully, no damage. Just car got it going very quickly. Conley going to return to the circuit now. Josh going to see if he can improve. Sits 12th overall. So there we see some of that dust between what looks like turns 3 and 4, actually. I'm guessing someone just understeered a little bit out of that turn 3 right-hander and found themselves maybe slightly off into the kitty litter. It's Casey Dennis, we're getting pictures on screen, being chased by Kyle Washington. And then Rod Wagner in that beautiful blue and orange pastel livery. Oh, and we have a red flag. See the 284 stopped just out of the corkscrew. That would be Mark Krigler, one of our new drivers. This is a bad sign if he's already binned it in practice too. Unfortunately, our cameras are not picking him up, but we can see on our track map that he's been sitting stationary. So I'm guessing that car is well stranded as others move on by. It's so late in the session, not sure that we'll be able to restart this one, but let's cross our fingers that we can get running once more as the track starts to go quiet. Don't have information yet as to what exactly happened to that car. I do see it making some small motions on our track map. Wonder if it's just being moved out of the way. Now I'm starting to see the rear of the car poke out. He is facing the wall currently there, just before Rainy Curve. Can often see cars wind up going a little bit too hot into there. And now he's going to back it down the hill, apparently. One of the safety trucks pulling up. The car is in motion, though. I think he's going to get that one turned around. Well, if he can drive it back to pit lane, that should make it a short red flag. But he's now come to a halt. We have about 6 minutes left on the clock. Crews are pushing that car back a bit. Thought maybe they'd try and take him behind the wall. I wonder if he's actually using gravity to help that thing, or if it is under power. That looks like it's under power. I don't think he can get going that fast down the hill just by gravity, but they're having to sweep up a little bit of the gravel that he's brought onto the circuit, especially out of the corkscrew. So car should be able to make it back with about 5 minutes remaining. Let's see what race control decides on this one. I think there's enough time to get cars out for a couple laps here.
All right, everyone, track services is leaving the scene. We are
Again,
under
Blake
a minute.
McDonald is our fastest here in practice two. And the number 208, Casey Dennis in second. Those are two Pro-Ams. And you've got Kevin Woods, who's third fastest overall, but he's our fastest Masters driver. I see the green flag being pulled out. That's a good sign. And engines are being fired. See if we get the official call here soon. Waiting to hear from race control.
Let me break in for a moment here, Joe. Fans of Pato O'Ward should head to the Turn 4 grandstands to say hi to the R.R. McLaren driver at noon. He's going to be over in the fan zone at the Pato O'Ward Turn 4 fan corral.
I suspect we have a lot of Pato fans here today, so don't miss that as the cars head back out on track with a little less than 5 minutes remaining. We are green flag once again. Glad to see we'll be able to get it going. And didn't see any major damage on that 284. So I think Krigler may have gotten away pretty well. I'll go and check it after the session. See if I can find out what exactly happened. Certainly a mad rush out of pit lane with lots of cars trying to get a little bit more in before all is said and done. Tires have cooled off. Maybe we'll see some improvement. 22 drivers have set a time so far. There is Krigler. Car's moving. And again, our camera angles are not showing any serious damage. That's great news. Glad to have Mark back out on track. He currently is 17th overall. Well, that mad rush meant that there's actually traffic now coming down through the corkscrew, including Patrick Mulcahy trying to see if he can get himself a little bit of track space here. Maybe he wants one more go at it to see if he can improve on 5th in class. Currently 6th overall in the GMG 254. Only has to make up about 0.08 of a second to go quicker than James Sofronis and his 214 machine. 2.5 minutes left. That's plenty of time for a couple laps now that they're on flyers out there. After this, we'll be back for qualifying a little bit later today, 4:25 p.m. here for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama Series. Drivers will want to try and position themselves. Not the easiest place to overtake here at Laguna Seca. Definitely possible.
We had car 50 off and slow. Car 50 is continuing. Turn 3 is clear.
Sounds like we had a car off at turn 3, but now continuing. Race control ever vigilant out here. Boy, Kyle Washington is looking fast as he's also kind of hustling a few cars out here. In fact, I think that might be Parnagian that he's trying to give the hurry up. No, that is Reinhold Kron that he's trying to get going. Kyle currently sitting 10th overall with Reinhold actually directly in front of him in the timing sheets as well. So that'll be important for him to try and get by. Gives a little look down to the inside of the Andretti hairpin, but decides it's not worth doing anything risky with this only being practice. So maybe he's getting some chances to see what it's like trying to race wheel to wheel with his competitors around here. If I'm seeing this right, I think Jim Walsh is already headed back into the pit area, back into the garages. Also, the 294 looks like they have taken it back to their tent. So something must have gone on that they're not happy with. Usually, you're going to work on it out here at pit lane if you're having issues like that. Just about 40 seconds remain. So we're almost done with practice number 2, and then things start to get a little bit more serious later today. Another car heading down into the tent area where they have the garages. That's the 284, who's going to abandon the racetrack and head in there. So Krigler either satisfied with his practice or maybe needs to get the car looked at as we count down 10 seconds left here in practice number 2 for Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama.
Flag starter, checkered flag.
And there is the checkered flag.
Everyone, if you take the checkered flag on the racetrack, the expectation
Let's see who's going to be the first across. I see the number 28 looking like he is going to be the first one.
Flag,
Richard Kenzie is a light tan machine in the Caymans that we'll see coming across the line. Kogan still leads those cars. Kenzie not able to top him, but he winds up in second in the Caymans for the AutoWorks team. In fact, his personal best of that session, 32.0. Puts him about 2 seconds off of Eli Kogan. Man, Eli is cooking today. 99 going to be the next one across. That's Michael Galke. He's third of the Caymans. Looks like he is going to complete the lap. Can he improve on the 32.4? No, he cannot. Still a good one, about 0.2 off of his quickest lap on that time through. 2:17 of Steve Miller. Next one around. Miller winds up 14th. Last couple cars across the line now, and that's going to wrap up our session. Again, join us at 4:25 p.m. for our qualifying session here for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West.
All right, everyone,
thank you for joining us. Let's hand you back to the track.
We're exiting immediately at turn 10.
Thank you, Joe Peak, for being with us for the
behind,
practice 2 for the Porsche Cup. The 20-minute qualifying session, by the way, for these cars begins